The Basement Door by Carter Thomas. Jennifer woke to the sound of footsteps, not the careful pad of bare feet or the soft creak of someone trying to move quietly. These were heavy, deliberate, the kind of steps that announced themselves. Thud, thud, thud. Boots on hardwood, weight behind each impact. They were coming from directly below her bedroom. She sat up in the darkness, heart hammering, and checked her phone. 2:07 a.m. The footsteps continued for what felt like forever, but was probably closer to 10 seconds. Then they stopped. Complete silence. Jennifer waited, blanket pulled to her chin, listening so hard her ears rang. The house settled around her with the usual pops and creaks of an old building adjusting to the night. Nothing else. She'd moved in yesterday. The house was small, a rental in a quiet neighborhood where the lawns were mowed and the cars were practical. Downstairs was a living room, kitchen, and bathroom. Upstairs was her bedroom and a spare room she planned to use for storage. And below that, accessible only through a door in the kitchen, was the basement. Jennifer grabbed the baseball bat she kept beside the bed. It had been her father's suggestion when she told him about the move. "You're living alone now," he'd said. "Better safe than sorry." She crept downstairs, turning on every light as she went. The kitchen was exactly as she'd left it, boxes still stacked against one wall, a single plate and fork drying in the dish rack. And there, beside the refrigerator, was the basement door. It was closed. Jennifer approached it slowly, bat raised. The door was old, painted white decades ago, and now chipped and yellowing. But what caught her attention were the latches. 3 of them. She'd noticed them during the walkthrough, but hadn't thought much about it. A sliding bolt at the top, a barrel bolt in the middle, and a hook and eye latch near the bottom. All 3 were engaged, locked from the kitchen side. Jennifer pressed her ear to the door. No sound. She tested each latch. They were all secure, showed no signs of being disturbed. The door itself was solid, tight in its frame. She checked the rest of the downstairs anyway. Windows locked, front door deadbolted, nothing out of place. By the time she climbed back into bed, the clock read 2:34 a.m. She didn't sleep for the rest of the night.
The second night, she was ready. Jennifer lay in bed with her phone in hand and the bat within reach. At 2:03 a.m., the footsteps started. Thud, 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 thud. The same rhythm, the same weight, coming from the same location, directly beneath her bedroom, which meant they were coming from the basement. They lasted about 10 seconds and stopped. This time, Jennifer was downstairs in under a minute. The basement door was closed, all 3 latches engaged, no signs of tampering. She stood there in her pajamas, staring at the white paint, and felt something cold settle in her stomach. This wasn't a settling house or a dream. Someone or something was in her basement, and they were walking around at 2 a.m. But the door was locked from her side. Jennifer didn't sleep that night either. On the 3rd night, she called her brother. "Derek, I think someone's in my basement." "What? Did you call the police?" "And tell them what? That I hear footsteps but the door is locked and nothing's disturbed?" Jennifer paced her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. "They'll think I'm crazy." "Are you sure you're hearing something?" "Yes." She didn't elaborate on how sure, on how the sound was the same every night, on how it stopped at exactly the same point, as if someone was counting steps. "Look, I can come down this weekend." "Derek, it's Tuesday." A pause. Could it be pipes? Old houses make weird sounds. "It's not pipes." Okay, look, check the basement during the day. Just open the door and look." Jennifer stared at the 3 latches. "Yeah, maybe." That night at 2:05 a.m., the footsteps came again. Same duration, same intensity, and this time Jennifer noticed something new. They didn't wander. They didn't pace back and forth like someone lost or confused. They moved in a straight line, starting from one point and ending at another. Purposeful, like someone walking toward something, or walking toward the stairs. On the 4th night, Jennifer didn't go to bed.
She sat in the living room with all the lights on, the baseball bat across her knees, and waited. At 1:45 a.m., she turned off the lights and sat in the darkness, listening. The house was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No hum of the refrigerator, no distant traffic, just the sound of her own breathing and the occasional creak of wood. At 2:02 a.m., the footsteps started. But this time, Jennifer was on the first floor, and the sound wasn't muffled by distance or ceiling. It was right below her. Thud, thud, thud. The floor vibrated with each impact. It sounded like someone wearing heavy boots, someone big, walking with absolute confidence in total darkness. The steps moved from the back of the basement toward the front, toward where the stairs would be. Then they stopped. Jennifer sat frozen, her hands gripping the bat so hard her knuckles ached. She counted her heartbeats, waiting for more, waiting for the sound of someone climbing stairs, testing the door, trying the latches. Nothing came. At 2:47 a.m., she finally stood on shaking legs and walked to the kitchen. The basement door was closed, latches engaged, but when she pressed her palm against the wood, she could swear it felt warm. The next morning, Jennifer knocked on her neighbor's door. The woman who answered was probably in her 60s, with short gray hair and the kind of face that suggested she didn't suffer fools. Her name was Carol, and she'd lived on the street for 23 years. "Something wrong with the house?" Carol asked after Jennifer had stumbled through an explanation that avoided the word ghost, but hid every other detail. "I don't know, maybe. Have you ever heard anything about the basement?" Carol's expression shifted slightly. Not surprised, but something more careful. "The door have 3 latches?" "Yes." "They all work?" "Yes." Carol nodded slowly. "Previous tenant mentioned the door, said it was like that when she moved in. She asked the landlord about it once. He said the house was old and the latches were original. That's all he'd say." "Did she ever hear anything?" "Not that she mentioned to me." Carol paused. "But she only stayed 8 months. Left pretty sudden. Said the commute wasn't working out." Jennifer felt her stomach drop. Would you mind coming over? Just to look at the basement with me? I haven't opened it yet, and I'd feel better if—" "You want a witness?" "Yes." Carol studied her for a long moment. "Give me 5 minutes." They stood in Jennifer's kitchen at 11:30 a.m. on a Saturday, sunlight streaming through the windows, making the whole thing feel absurd. 2 grown women staring at a basement door. "You really haven't been down there yet?" Carol asked. The landlord said it was empty, just concrete and the water heater. "But you hear someone walking around." Jennifer nodded. Carol reached for the top latch. Only one way to know for sure. The sliding bolt made a metallic snick as it disengaged, then the barrel bolt, then the hook and eye latch at the bottom. Carol pulled the door open. A stairway descended into darkness, wooden steps, no railing, dropping down to a concrete floor, barely visible in the ambient light from the kitchen. At the bottom of the stairs, just at the edge of where the light reached, a shape. Human-shaped, dark, standing perfectly still. Jennifer's breath caught. For one impossible second, nothing happened. The shape stood at the bottom of the stairs, and they stood at the top, and the moment stretched like taffy. Then it charged. The stomping erupted, thud, 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 thud. Not the measured pace of the nighttime walks, but a full sprint, boots hammering against wood, the entire staircase shaking with the impacts. The shape surged upward, massive and fast and real, and Jennifer could hear something else beneath the footsteps, a sound like air being forced through a narrow space, like breathing but wrong. Carol screamed and lunged for the door. Jennifer grabbed it too, both of them pulling, and the door swung shut just as something slammed into it from the other side. The impact was so hard it rattled the hinges, so hard Jennifer felt it in her teeth. "Latch it," Carol shouted. Jennifer's hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the hook and eye. She got it closed, then the barrel bolt, then reached up for the sliding bolt just as another impact hit the door. Wood creaked. The latches held. They staggered backward, breathing hard. The door rattled in its frame, once, twice, then silence. Jennifer and Carol stood in the kitchen, staring at the closed door, waiting for more, but nothing came. The house was quiet again, normal, except for the fact that they'd just seen something at the bottom of the stairs, except for the fact that it had charged them. "What?" Carol said quietly. "Was that?" Jennifer shook her head. She didn't have words. That night, the rules changed. The footsteps started at 1:47 a.m., earlier than before. They lasted 15 seconds instead of 10, and they came again at 2:23 a.m. and again at 3:04 a.m. Each time, Jennifer lay in bed and listened to the thud, thud, thud of heavy boots on concrete, moving back and forth, pacing now instead of walking in a straight line. The house felt different too, smaller. The air pressure seemed wrong, like being in a plane that wasn't quite pressurized correctly. Doors that had closed easily now stuck in their frames. The basement door itself seemed to sit differently, one corner slightly raised, as if the whole frame had shifted. Jennifer didn't call Derek. She didn't call anyone. What would she say? That she'd opened a door she shouldn't have opened and now something was angry? On the second night after the door incident, she woke to find her bedroom door open. She always closed it before bed, always. But at 2:11 a.m., when the footsteps woke her, the door was standing wide open, showing the dark hallway beyond. Jennifer got up and closed it, checked the lock on the handle. There wasn't one. She pushed her dresser in front of it and went back to bed, but didn't sleep. The footsteps came 3 more times that night. The last time, at 4:33 a.m., they sounded like they were right below her floor, as if the thing in the basement was standing at the top of the stairs, just on the other side of the latch door, listening to her listen to it. On the 5th day after opening the door, Jennifer went to the hardware store. She bought 3 heavy-duty slide bolts, a deadbolt lock, a package of 3-inch screws, a power drill. The clerk asked if she was reinforcing a shed. She said yes. Back home, she installed everything. The new bolts went above and below the existing latches. The deadbolt went in the middle, drilled straight through the door and into the frame. When she was done, the basement door had 7 separate locking mechanisms. It took her 3 hours. That night, the footsteps started at 1:52 a.m. They were louder than before, not just heavy, but violent, like someone trying to break through the floor. They came 5 times before dawn, but the door held.
A week passed, then 2. The footsteps continued every night, multiple times, at varying hours. But they never came before 1:45 a.m., and they always stopped by 5 a.m. The house remained pressurized, wrong, doors sticking, rooms feeling smaller than they were. Jennifer stopped sleeping at night. She slept during the day instead, in the spare room upstairs with the curtains drawn, a fan running to mask any sounds from below. She worked from home anyway. Her job didn't care when she was awake as long as the work got done. She stopped using the kitchen after dark, kept her distance from the basement door. The latches became a ritual. Every morning at 6 a.m., she would check them, all 7, make sure each one was engaged, tight, secure. It took 3 minutes. She never missed a day. Carol stopped by once, 2 weeks after the incident. "You okay?" Carol asked, standing on the porch. She didn't ask to come in. "Managing," Jennifer said. "You still hear it?" "Yes." Carol nodded. She looked older than she had before. Tired. "The previous tenant, the one who left after 8 months?" I lied. She didn't mention the door to me. She mentioned the footsteps. Said they started after her boyfriend opened the basement to check the water heater. Jennifer felt cold. What did she do? Same as you, looks like. Reinforced it, lived with it, then left. Carol shifted her weight, not quite meeting Jennifer's eyes. "I knew, when you asked me to help. I knew what would happen if we opened it. But I thought maybe if someone else saw it, someone practical, it would turn out to be nothing. Or I could help you leave. Why didn't you tell me not to open it? Would you have believed me?" Jennifer didn't answer. Carol turned to leave, then paused. "Keep the latches closed. Don't ever open it again. And if you're going to stay, you need to understand something." "What?" "It's not trying to get out anymore. It already knows you're here. Now it's just making sure you don't forget."
3 months after moving in, Jennifer established a routine. She worked during the day, slept from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and spent her evenings in the living room with headphones playing white noise. At 1:45 a.m., she would go upstairs to the spare room, close the door, and wait. The footsteps always came, sometimes twice, sometimes 6 times,
but never before 1:45 a.m., and never after 5 a.m. On the first of every month, she replaced one of the screws on the deadbolt. It was excessive. The screws didn't wear out that fast, but it gave her something to control. She stopped telling people about the footsteps. Derek had suggested she moved. Her mother had suggested therapy. Her father had driven down once, spent a night on the couch, heard nothing. It was a Tuesday, and the footsteps were quieter on Tuesdays for reasons Jennifer didn't understand, and told her she was working too hard. So she stopped mentioning it. The house was hers. The basement was closed, and as long as she maintained the latches, as long as she never opened that door again, the thing below would remain below. It was, she realized, a kind of agreement. She wouldn't go down there. It wouldn't come up here. The door and its 7 locks represented the terms of their coexistence. She followed the rules, and the rules kept her safe. Mostly safe. There were moments, usually around 3 a.m., when the footsteps were their loudest, when she wondered what would happen if she moved, if the next tenant would hear the same sounds, if Carol would warn them, or stay silent like she had with Jennifer. There were moments when she wondered what the thing in the basement actually wanted, but mostly, she didn't think about it. She checked the latches every morning. She avoided the kitchen at night. She lived her life in the spaces the footsteps couldn't reach, and every night at 1:45 a.m., she listened to the sound of heavy boots on concrete, pacing back and forth, in the darkness below. The house was quiet now, but only because she was being obedient. On a Tuesday in late October, 6 months after moving in, Jennifer stood in the kitchen at 6 a.m. doing her morning check. Slide bolt 1, engaged. Slide bolt 2, engaged. Slide bolt 3, engaged. Barrel bolt, engaged. Hook and eye latch, engaged. Deadbolt, locked. Slide bolt 4, engaged. Her hand rested on the last latch, and she felt the door's warmth beneath her palm. Not hot, but distinctly warm, as if something on the other side was pressed against it. Waiting. Jennifer pulled her hand away and stepped back. The door remained closed. She made coffee, ate breakfast, and went upstairs to sleep. When she woke that afternoon, the sun was shining, and the house looked perfectly normal. Just a small rental in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing special, nothing wrong. Except that every night, something walked in the basement, and every morning, Jennifer made sure it stayed there. The agreement held. And as long as she never broke it again, as long as she respected the door and its 7 locks, she could live here. She could live with this. It was the price of opening what should have stayed closed. It was the cost of knowing. And every night in the hours between 1:45 and 5 a.m., the footsteps reminded her of exactly what she'd done.